Section 9.0, PI Tag Configurator. The PI Tag Configurator is an add-in to Excel that ships with PI-SMT that allows for bulk manipulation of tags. Actually, we've kind of saved the best for close to last here, because those people who are used to working with PI tags using SMT, this tag configurator, and the point builder, by far they prefer using this point builder. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Typically what we would see is people would go out and grab an export file from a control system. So let's say this represents some of the attributes of a set of PI tags that you would like to create, and this is the export that you got from the control system. Well, all you need to do is specify the field names the same way we specify those field names in PI. Eng units instead of units, zero span. Instead of target value, use typical value. As long as you use our field names, and as long as you put things in the proper sequence, it's sort of column here, and then select all those that you want with the letter X here. If I choose SMT, I'll choose select all tags. See, it just selected those. See, now I can actually create these as PI tags. So I'll go ahead and choose PI-SMT Export. This is going to create these tags on the PI server. So I'll go ahead and create these using create or edit mode, which means it will either create it or edit it depending on whether it exists or not already. And there we go. Those tags have now been created. As you can see, 13 tags have been created. Now, of course, we can import back. For example, let me get rid of all this. And if I choose SMT import, now it's going to retrieve from the server. It's importing from the server. So we're taking the point of view of the client here. And it's going to go out, grab that data, and bring that back into the system. Now, obviously, this is a much more high-powered way of creating tags than the old one at a time method that you saw with the PI point builder. Well, with such a powerful tag editor, there's a couple of gotchas we should warn you about. Be very careful about deleting existing tags. If you were to delete an existing tag, all the archive data associated with that tag would be lost. And there is no simple or quick undelete. You can call tech support. We might be able to help you in that regard, but it's really a very severe process. We really strongly recommend you don't. You be careful about deleting tags. Now we do, if you take a look at the add-in here, if you look at the settings, we do try to protect the privileged user from accidentally deleting things by choosing this allow tag deletion. If we choose that, then tag deletion will be allowed. If we clear that, then the user will not be able to accidentally create or delete tags. Now remember, this only is there to protect the privileged user who has permissions to delete. This, of course, is not the full scope of our security. This is simply something to prevent you, the system manager who has privileges, from accidentally deleting things. See, you would have to explicitly go into settings to delete something. And then we would suggest that as soon as you do that, you go back and set that off again. Also, if you do want to rename a tag, you would rename a tag using this new tag option. Okay? If a tag is renamed like this, you're going to notice that there are certain things that will break. The data link reports are going to have to be edited. Of course, all the history for that tag will still be there, but data link will have to be edited. Process book is not going to be in such bad shape. Process book simply refers to tags by their internal ID, so that will not be a problem. And then finally, any performance equations that or anything that uses performance equation expressions with hard-coded tag names are going to need to be changed as well. So I said you would do this using the tag new tag structure. It would look something like this. You would create two attributes, tag, and this is where you'd put the original tag, my OPC tag 1, and then new tag is where you would put the name of the new tag, my renamed tag. And then you would process that using an export, PI-SMT export tags. Okay, so much for the quick introduction. Let's go through some fundamentals. First of all, you will find the tag configurator as an add-in. It should show up slightly differently when you're working with the Office 2007 version of Excel. But it shows up as an add-in, and from this add-in you can specify that exactly what you'd like to do. Create new tags, import tags from the existing Pi server, etc. Now, if for some reason you don't see PI-SMT here, it could be you need to go into Tools and then Add-ins and browse for it. It's called the PI Tag Configurator. You'll find this in the PyPC/SMT directory. So this is typically under Program Files. And under Program Files, we wanted to go to PyPC. And SMT stands for System Management Tools. Here it is, PyTagConf.xla. That's the add-in file. So in case you don't see it, that's how you would add it to this list. As I mentioned earlier, there are some settings available here. Some of the settings to allow tag creation and deletion. You can use an alternate delimiter, which is really only of use if you are exporting for a PyConfig session, which is very rare nowadays. That's a very old format. And you can also choose to connect to the server on startup. That will initiate the connection when we first start up Excel. Now, by the way, some customers, they just don't like having these extra things sitting there all the time. You don't have to add this as an add-in. You don't have to make this what ends up being a kind of semi-permanent part of Excel. What you can do is simply open up that file that I mentioned, the pytagconf.xla. Just open it up when you want to use this, and that works just fine. I'd like to demonstrate the import capabilities first because it's harmless. It's not going to hurt anything if we import a lot of information on a spreadsheet. Exporting is the one that may actually do some harm because we're sending data to the server. So if you don't know what you're doing, then stay away from export for right now. Anyway, let's import. When I choose to import on a blank database, I can specify to simply import all the attributes that match, or all the attributes for all the tags that match the criteria that we set forth right here. So for example, I'm saying let's look at all the tags that begin with the letter CD, and we're going to get all the attributes. And there they are. There are a lot of attributes that you can see listed here. Now these are all the different attributes of the Pi tags. So 0, span, engineering units, exception, compression, deviation, they're all here. Now let's compare that to what happens if you were to retrieve just a subset of data. So let me go ahead and just define an import like this. Let's go with tag, and let's go with data owner, data group, and data access. These are three attributes that control security. So I would like to see just those tags that match let's look at the tags called the OPC interface tags. So I'm going to choose PI-SMT, tag search, and I'm going to search for the point source equal to O. And see, this brings up just a set of two tags. Now that I've got this becomes a nice little report generator, because when I import, it simply finds those attributes that I've specified for those tags. And you notice it switches automatically. Once we detect that there's content there, we will go ahead and use that. And we can also go out and add more attributes if we want using that. So I'll go ahead and say OK. And there we go. It's a nice little report generator that's showing us the data owner is interface, the data group is PyAdmin, and the owner has read-write access, and everybody else has read access. So that's an example of using this to import tags. When it's time to export tags, there's a few rules to keep in mind. So let's demonstrate. First, I'm going to import some tags. Again, that same criteria I used originally. These are all the tags that begin with the letters CD. So when exporting, there's a few rules. First of all, the attributes are listed in the top row, always the top row, and there can be no blank rows. If there's a blank row, we just stop processing at that point. Okay. The tag name is always listed in the second column. That's column B, the way I've set up Excel here. Okay. Each tag has its attributes listed under the headings in the top row. So, for example, archiving is listed under this heading. compression maximum, compdev percent. These are all the different attributes for each of the tags. Let's look at a more straightforward example, something like engineering units. Yeah, here are the engineering units of each tag. So the tags we see in the rows, and in the columns we see the names of the attributes. Okay. And you can select a row by simply putting an X in it. So for example, if I don't want to edit these tags, I just clear the X, and they will not be edited. Now we do suggest that you only export attributes that have been changed. Let me explain what I mean. Sometimes we see folks do this. They, let's say they've got these settings here for compression deviation, or actually let's go with archiving. They've got settings here for archiving, and they have chosen properly what they would like for each one of those. If they clear that and then export, what you'll notice is that we will actually get the default value here. Even though there is no value, we're going to revert to the default value. Let me show you a better example, this time using the span. If you look at, here it is, here's the span of these tags. You notice they're all different. If I were to delete this and then export, then immediately when I export, every single tag will get the default span, which is 100. So we typically suggest only export those things that are changing. The less that you're exporting, the better. Also, another point, the compdev and compdev percent are really just two different ways of editing the same attribute. And it's the same for the xdev and the xdev percent. So what we're suggesting you do is only edit one of these. See that the problem is, if I do export both of these at the same time, compdev percent and xdev percent take precedence. So what we've seen is, we've seen customers who do this, they go to great lengths to come up with very good values. And then when they export this, let's say they export all these tags. Let me go ahead and export this right now. They export all these tags, but they keep, let me make changes to all of these. But they keep compdev percent on the same screen. Watch what happens. I'll go ahead and export this. We're going to be in edit mode here. Okay, we didn't get any errors here. But watch what happens if I import this back. Watch what happens to these values right here. I'll do a PI-SMT import tags. We're going to import everything that's on the spreadsheet. Look what happened. Everything reverted back to the original. And the reason that happened is because, as I said, when you export, if both of these are in the same spreadsheet, we're simply going to take compdev percent. That's the one that has precedence. So if you are going to edit compdev, just simply delete this column so that you're not going to be competing with the compdev percent setting, which will, as I said, take precedence.